infrastructure is maintained and improved to maximize the benefit for the residents that currently live in the city of Atlantic Beach. I'm going to focus on stormwater, and because of the flooding issues we've had, that will be one of the areas of concern. Additionally, I want us to have the best park system that we possibly can. We have a lot of wonderful parks, and they just need better maintenance, I think. My qualifications, besides my Navy leadership skills acquired there, as you said, I'm a licensed professional engineer, civil engineer, specializing in stormwater and streets. I spent 10 years supervising and maintaining those systems in the city of Atlantic Beach. I was project manager for a lot of public infrastructure projects. I know how to get people from different organizations working together. Debris removal was something they didn't mention in my job interviews, but I learned about it thanks to Charlie, Francis, and Jean, the first fall of my term. In addition to what you discussed about my job, as Public Works Director, I drafted and I defended the Public Works budget for all 10 years through the city manager and ultimately to the city commission. In addition, I drafted significant legislation for review by the city attorney and approval by the city commission. That included the new sanitation ordinance, numerous changes to the land development regulations over the years. As I said, I've attended many city workshops. Most recently, I had the pleasure, I guess, of being the only public participant in the city's 3 budget workshops that were quite interesting. Reasons voters should support my candidacy is just my experience, my knowledge of the city. Nobody knows this city as well as I do. Well, I say that, but there are probably some very long-term police officers who know this city better than I do. I have the experience and I have the knowledge to train our relatively new senior staff in the city. I believe that the city needs strong technical leadership on the commission, and I believe I can provide that leadership. I'm proud of this city. I've loved it for my entire 23 years of living here, and I want to make sure that it is the best it can be. Our prior and current city leadership have made great progress. I've seen a lot of changes in my time here, and I want to be the one to continue those changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Next up is Ellen Glasser, our current mayor, now running for a 2nd term. Most of you know Ellen spent most of her career as a special agent in the FBI, and after 9/11 headed the North Florida Joint Terrorism Task Force. While she was earning her doctorate at UNF, she taught there also for several years. In terms of unpaid work, her involvement with the community stretches back more than 20 years through volunteer work and service on boards like the Community Development Board, Code Enforcement, Beaches Habitat, and lots of others. Her campaign site lists more than 90 accomplishments of her first term that I will not try to summarize for her, but I urge you to take a look, and I'm sure Ellen will speak to those too. Welcome, Ellen.
Well, thanks, Elizabeth. I really appreciate the chance to be here with you guys, even though it's virtual. And just like in the last campaign, I really welcome the opportunity to talk to as many residents as possible. I really wish that the other candidates had chosen to participate, because I think this is a great way to really get to know who it is that you're voting into office. So I found that somewhat disappointing. But I'm going to just give a shout out to Rick. You know, he does know the city like the back of his hand, and I think that he has comported himself in a very professional and civil way throughout this campaign. He asks really good questions. I would say that I do think that we have the technical support that we need with our staff. We have built a great team. So I don't think that that expertise has to reside in the mayor's seat, but I just want to give Rick credit for for being a good neighbor in this campaign, and he does really stand up for what he believes in. I think that we talk about many of the same things, but we have very different approaches, and I'll get into that in just a second. So when we talk about Atlantic Beach, I think it's really important to just look around you and see that our city is in great shape. Our parks, our beaches look great. Our residential quality of life remains really high. So I don't find that most of our residents are looking for problems because we have a pretty great life here. I will say that as your mayor for the last 3 years, I have really tried very hard to serve all of our residents. And to me, balance is really the key. It's often easy to respond to sort of the squeaky wheel and I need this or I want that. But there are a lot of people that aren't asking for things that they need. And I have spent a lot of time engaging with people across all demographic lines in Atlantic Beach. I think that's one of the things that really distinguishes me from the other candidates for mayor. So this is all about us, and we are Atlantic Beach, and I really do believe that I can offer stability for the future, which may not sound sexy, but I think in these kind of tense times, it's a good thing. And I do think that I can represent all of Atlantic Beach. That's been a goal of mine. So with my priorities, I have listed a 10-point list of priorities on my website. I won't get into them, but I will say that the top 3 are really about public safety. It's one of those things that you don't really worry about it unless it's a problem. And that can include our police department. And you probably saw the beaches leader today where we're going to be considering the appointment of Vic Gualillo, a 29-year veteran of the police department, to be our next chief of police. And I'm excited to talk about that on Monday. But public safety also includes protection during hurricanes. And so I have led through 2 of them, Dorian and Isaias, and we were pretty fortunate with both. But I also was involved with the stakeholders for the cost share agreement for the full dune renourishment in 2018 of our dunes. And that was an off-year renourishment, and that's something that protects our residents, our property, and all of Atlantic Beach. And then finally, the COVID pandemic, which really none of us had a playbook for, and which has presented some of the most unique challenges that any government officials have ever faced. And I feel like I've really been pretty transparent in my decision making with that, worked closely with other elected officials and provided data that supports the decisions that we've made. But this has been a really difficult time for a lot of our residents, and it's not over yet because now sort of this is shifted over to our school systems, and I'm monitoring this really closely. So I'm talking a lot. Let me get on to my qualifications. Elizabeth, I think you mentioned a lot of them. So tomorrow is September 11th, and it's the 19th anniversary of that terrorist attack. I don't think it's a small thing that the FBI chose me to be the coordinator of the North Florida Joint Terrorism Task Force. And it's because I have a lot of experience working in groups with different backgrounds to try to get things when they need them, support them when they need it, and be out there on the ground when it comes time to take actions. So, I bring a storied career in the FBI, which I'm really proud of, even though I'm not too keen on some of the politicization of the organization in recent years. I've been retired now for 16 years. And so after that, I came to Atlantic Beach as my last office in the FBI and stumbled over Atlantic Beach as the place that I wanted to raise my children. I've always been about, being sort of in a small community where you can make a difference. And so Atlantic Beach was perfect for that. So I have 4 children and 2 stepchildren. We call Atlantic Beach home. And so then when I retired from the FBI, I did earn my doctorate and teach criminal justice at UNF, where I just loved engaging with the young people there who were starting their careers. And I'm really very much in the space of helping young people and seniors, in addition to the families in Atlantic Beach. I've got a lot of things in my record that speak to that. So I don't think there's any question that I'm qualified. I've served on 2 boards in Atlantic Beach. I've been to countless meetings, and it was several years before I decided to step up and run for office. And so it wasn't something that just happened overnight. So in any event, I love Atlantic Beach. My husband is a retired Navy captain. I love the fact that we're close to a military base. I love that it's family friendly and eclectic, and I love that we have all the parks and recreation opportunities. And so I just feel like my love of the city combined with my very unique skill set makes me qualified. And I think the proof is in what I've done over the last 3 years. So why should voters support me? And again, I say, I feel like there's not, if you look around you, there's not really, I think, a pressing need to change anything. When I became the mayor, we had a number of department head positions that were vacant. We really had not had a city manager for quite a while. We didn't have a police chief. And I'm just going to say, I don't think very much got done in that environment. And I have worked really hard to empower our team of professionals to work to advance the city in a number of areas. So infrastructure, Rick talked about that. That's a really important thing. And I will say with our budget this year, we're focusing on really the things that we have to do instead of the things that we would like to do. We have a number of infrastructure projects queued up. And so that's definitely very important. And I think Rick and I are on the same page with that. City services is something that we always want to strive to do better on. We are doing better, but there are areas of improvement. And I would really love the chance to make those improvements because we can only do so much at one time in a small town. I will say there's going to be no property tax increase this year. We have a balanced budget this year. And we have an excellent finance director who's helped us sort of decrease the shortfall that we expected from the COVID-19 revenue shortfall. So, yes.
Ellen, I'm going to have to stop you there.
Okay. Can I just say it's been an honor to serve you all, and I really ask for your vote and your support. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm sorry not to be introducing Terry Lynn Ray, who is the third candidate for mayor. She wanted to be here. She declined the opportunity, but has a very detailed candidate website, and we've included that in what we're putting up on the BAM site. I am not going to try to summarize someone's career or aspirations who isn't here to correct what I might get wrong. So please go to her site and get to know her on your own. Before we meet the commission candidates, I wanted to put up the map just briefly for people like me who don't actually immediately think, oh, District 2. So Carol, we're queuing the shared.
Can you let me share the screen?
Yes. Oh, do I have to let you share the screen?
Yep.
I am so sorry. You should be able to. No, it says I'm sharing.
Yeah.
I apologize. Excuse me, this is, yes, go right ahead. So, in case you don't already know, and of course the numbers that we're used to hearing aren't the ones that show up here, but 13H, the yellow section, is seat number 2, which is roughly Plaza to East Coast to Mayport Road and this fascinating little bevel at the top. And seat 3 is this green area along the coast and to the furthest north. So those are the 2 seats that are up for re-election in this election. The other, the blue and the orange, will come up in 2 years. So starting now, well, as soon as the map leaves us, City Commission seat 2, Bruce Bowl is one of the 2 candidates running for seat 2. Bruce is another enthusiastic Atlanta Beach resident with a naval background. He got his master's in political science from Auburn, has a wide range of work experiences I know he'll tell you more about. He's currently serving on the General Pension Fund for Atlantic Beach and is eager to bring his skills and commitment to a seat on the commission. Welcome, Bruce.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Again, thanks for the forum. I guess you can see me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I know both Ellen and Rick for some time, and I appreciate a lot of things that they say. My experience, it always concerns me when people say, I think, I feel, I know, without substantiation. I'm willing to listen and learn and hopefully make decisions that benefit us all. I don't know how to solve every issue facing Atlantic Beach, but I'm willing to learn. What I bring to the table is fact-based analytical decision-making based on quantitative data. I'll do the homework on the issues and point to the metrics to make decisions as I have done in my past careers. And part of the things I sent into you, I think, along with Ellen and Rick, have kind of a unique viewpoint of Atlantic Beach. As a director of Navy Region Southeast Operations, I led the Navy's effort in Hurricane Katrina and Wilma as the point of contact for the entire Navy. Now, in that, I worked with a whole multitude of federal departments, and I think that's a unique skill that I can bring to the table. I know Rick has mentioned some things, and I understand he and I have talked about a lot of the intricacies. But I guess I'm pointing back to the fact that I'm willing to listen and learn. A couple of the points that come to mind as a citizen is, first of all, I support the projects in the 2018 Stormwater Master Plan above all the other capital projects. Flooding is a real issue I've experienced firsthand in my career. Parking, I know a lot of you are thinking parking, that's a no-win situation, whatever I say. But I'll tell you that from my experience, strict parking enforcement is the key. I'm against paid parking in town center. The metrics and anecdotal evidence from our local merchants really should drive decision-making. Hourly time limits strictly enforced and financially advantageous to the city makes sense to me. And again, I'm willing to look at the metrics and the analysis of what's right for all of us. I support the current tree ordinance, but I think we can do better. I understand the state puts some restrictions on what the city has jurisdiction over. I do think the city should find a way to extend public water and sewer across to every part of our city. I have a kind of a different perspective here. I would look hard at adding more sidewalks and bike paths to our current structure. I'd have to look at the metrics. Any additional concrete comes with a price. Climate change causes sea level rise is a fact that our children and grandchildren will have to live with. And I think we have to look beyond the next few years of what Atlantic Beach is going to look like 50 years from now. I have a history of working with minority and disadvantaged populations and stand by my record of positive change. I currently work for a nonprofit Alaska Native Corporation that promotes the ideals of equity and positive change for all people, and they hold me to those tenets. While working as Deputy Commandant of the Naval Academy and member of the Admissions Board, our team championed the rights of all our students and I think made a positive difference. As a commanding officer of squadron at sea on an aircraft carrier, I know what true teamwork can achieve. My candidacy is supported by the Jacksonville National Organization of Women. I'm currently a trustee of the Atlantic Beach General Pension Fund. And I'd like to just say, kind of echo what the first two candidates said. We are so lucky to live in Atlantic Beach. I want to give back, and if I can make it just a little better in some way, that's what I'd like to do. I've raised 3 daughters here, and that's why I'm in this. Thanks for the forum. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce. The other candidate for seat number 2 is Frank Cashman, who is not joining us tonight. Frank is the one candidate I've been unable to find a website or Facebook page or anything for. So if anyone on this call who knows him knows of a source of information to point us to, please put that in the chat box so we can include it on our website. Moving to Commission seat 3, we're going to hear from Lisa Goodrich. She's one of the 2 candidates running for that seat. Lisa is another longtime Atlantic Beach resident with a widely varied background in community service. Her day job is business development strategist for a local ad company. She's also got decades of volunteer and board experience with an amazing array of community organizations. In both her paid and volunteer work, she points to a track record of cultivating consensus and building community engagement. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thanks to everybody for taking the time to get to know the candidates. I'm happy to be here. And I, like the other candidates, wish that all of them were here so you could meet everybody, but I'm pleased to talk with you. The reason I got into this, as a longtime resident of Atlantic Beach, we moved here in 1993. We felt fortunate to find Atlantic Beach and intend to live here the rest of our lives. We have raised a wonderful son here. We've lived in the same 3 blocks the whole time. Lived in one house for 25 years and then built our dream house in the same dog walking path so that we can see our same neighbors every single day. The reason I got into this is not because I'm angry at how things are in the city. I'm not disappointed. I'm not unhappy. I'm not unhappy at all. I actually appreciate the direction that the city is going. And I thought during these kind of divisive and contentious times, feeling somewhat helpless, as a neighbor and a member of a solid community, what can I do to give back to the place that I love? And I thought, well, this seat is available. I've always been involved, and this is something I can do to give back. And I'm jumped in with both feet and have enjoyed every minute of it. My priorities for Atlantic Beach are simple. I would like to maintain our livability. I think that that means protecting the residential nature of Atlantic Beach, which includes our tree canopy, which is enormously important to me. It's the reason we chose Atlantic Beach. As soon as we made the left turn off Seminole Road onto 19th Street and went under that magical tree canopy, I said, this is it. Well, here we are. We found it. So that's extremely important to me. I also agree that we can probably be a little more strict on our tree ordinance. So I would like to help protect our trees. It's one of the reasons we all live here. It means keeping our beaches and marshes clean and healthy, and it means managing traffic and parking in a way that is smart and respectful of the residents, but also understanding that we don't own these beaches. We're part of a greater city, and so we have to share it. But it does mean managing the traffic and the parking. I would adhere to the objectives outlined in the city's comprehensive plan. I've read through that and I think it's well done. So that's important. Sustainability and resiliency is another priority for me. We are making good headway in that, and I'd like to advance the ball a little further down the field. I'd like to be a part of making data-driven decisions that help us position in a smart way to meet the demands of climate change, rising water, stormwater drainage, and so forth. That's extremely important. We're a coastal city, so we've got water surrounding us. It's not just what affects our dunes and our beachfront, but the marsh needs a lot of attention, and the residents over there deserve a strong voice on the commission, and that would be important to me. This includes, when I say sustainability, I mean making sure that our city services are meeting the needs of the future. That includes public safety, electricity, stormwater, drainage, and sewer. It's important to me to promote our local business community. I'd like to make sure that we can address their needs and help them grow the businesses that they'd like to grow here in Atlantic Beach, at the same time making sure that there's a balance with the residential nature of our neighborhoods. It's important to me to help some of the commission, the other commissioners that will remain on the commission, to help with the Mayport corridor improvements, the kind of arts district that they're planning there, and that's burgeoning. So I love that, and I'd like to be a part of that. The qualifications Elizabeth mentioned, So in my family, we had a kind of a rule, well, just a way of being, that my husband was in charge of income. And while I was a stay-at-home parent, I would be in charge of giving back to the community on behalf of our family. So I took that very seriously. My first foray into community here at Atlantic Beach was with First Night Atlantic Beach, way back when. I think it was 1995. It was a small group of us that hosted First Night for a couple years and handed it over to the city at that point. But it was a wonderful family-friendly event for New Year's Eve. It was a giant undertaking, involved lots of moving parts. From there, I moved on to supporting the Beach's Fine Art Series, and I know that is well loved by a lot of Atlantic Beach residents. I served there for 6 years and went on to be president of the board. I grew their budget from threefold while I was with the Beach's Fine Art Series. And from there, I went to serve at the Cultural Council of Greater Jacksonville. That was a big job. I was on the grants panel there, which was, I was charged with helping to manage and distribute the taxpayers' portion that went to the arts for our Greater Jacksonville city budget. That included funding and supporting all the Beaches organizations, the Beaches Museum, Atlantic Beach Experimental Theater, the Beaches Fine Arts Series, like I said, and Players by the Sea. I served at the Cultural Council for 6 years, 3 as a member of the grant panel appointed by the mayor, and then 3 on the board itself. I already have a knowledge base of what's going on in the city. I've been involved. I help the city right now facilitate Shakespeare in the Park. I've been kind of an advisor and coordinator with Shane Corbin, our city manager, on helping with arts events in the city. I attend meetings. Rick, I was there with you at the budget workshops. I didn't speak up, but I was listening intently, and my poor husband afterwards, I was so excited about the things that I heard and learned. I had to give him minute by minute detail. But I thought that that was a fascinating experience. I have a great relationship with the city staff. I feel that I could hit the ground running, working with our city manager and our finance director. She's a wonderful person. So I would like to continue the forward progress and the momentum that is currently underway in our city, and that's why I have decided to participate in our community's government. Reasons voters should support me: I have priorities set that align with the issues facing our city, and most importantly, I have the time. I have the time to delve into these things. I have the time to be prepared for meetings, to meet with staff, communicate with constituents from all parts of the city, and follow up on implementation of items that the commission puts forth. I think that that aspect cannot be overlooked. And I hope to have your vote. You can check me out on my website and ask me any questions you'd like through that. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you. Excellent timing. I was just about to cut you off. The other candidate for seat 3 is Dr. Michael Waters. I'm sorry he's not with us tonight, but again, you'll find a link to his website on our page, and I encourage you to go there and learn more about his candidacy. We are very sorry that we didn't get all the candidates here tonight, and I do want to let you know that both Atlantic Beach Preservation and Beaches Watch are among maybe others who are planning candidate forums, and I hope we'll have fuller representation at those. I'll be sure, for those of you on the BAM email list, that you know about all of those upcoming forums, and for any of you who might not be on our email list, if you'd like to be there so you get notifications for both our meetings and things like that, go to our website and there's a sign up for the email list. While we've been talking, I had one question asking whether people can vote for any commission seat they like or not, and I do want to make that clear that your vote for your commission seat depends on where you live, which district you actually live in. I don't think you get to vote for all of them, do you?
It's at large. It
It
is
is,
at
all of
large.
you are at large? Oh, wonderful. Okay,
just
bad
have-
information.
Yeah, we just have to live in the district that we're representing, but
You have
it's
to live
at-large voting.
Okay, so it's at-large voting across the board. Excellent. I apologize to the person I just gave terrible advice to, and thank you for clearing that up. We have a few questions that have already come in. I would encourage you to be sending them now to the chat box. If anybody's having trouble finding the chat box, speak up. The way to unmute yourself is to find your little picture or to find yourself in the list of participants. And if you click on your picture, you will see you have the ability to unmute yourself. I am now going to unmute our speakers so that I can ask some of these questions we've already received. Actually, I'm having trouble with that. You may have to unmute yourselves.
I'm muted.
I'm muted.
Yeah, you are unmuted. First question, which everyone is happy to, I would like everyone to take a shot at, perhaps in the order that you spoke. So that would put Rick first. The question is, do you feel climate change is a major threat? And if so, what would you do to start addressing that? So.
Okay, climate change is a fact. It's happening to us. We're seeing sea level rise now. That is going to be the biggest impact to Atlantic Beach. It's going to come at us from the west, from the intercoastal water side, and the city needs to start working on an adaptation plan. They did a flood level study last year, and now have, as I understand from talking to the city engineer, have made a grant application for additional funds to start working on an actual adaptation plan. That is something that needs to be factored into a capital improvement budget. And we need to be looking at whether we move away from the intercoastal waterway. I do have to clarify, this is not something that's going to impact us today, tomorrow, or next week. This is something that is 10 years, 20 years down the line, but it's going to be a very expensive process. And the faster we start, the more we can allocate that money, or spread that money out over years, rather than having to come up with a big bunch of money all at once. That's all.
Ellen?
Well, thanks, Elizabeth. Rick has spoken about some of the things we share the same view on this. Climate change is a reality, even though some elected officials don't talk about it. Municipalities and states do talk about it in that terms. So yes, our city did apply for a grant to do a vulnerability assessment. We were the first in the region, and that's the beach cities and Jacksonville, to do that, where we looked at what the impact was going to be over again, 10, 20 years and beyond. And it's a real thing. And we went out and we did some education efforts. We did them at City Hall. I did one at Beaches Watch. I've done them at WJCT. And we are trying to educate the community on what that's going to mean for us. And so the next part was to apply for a grant to do the adaptation plan, which is where we are now. And that will really identify what critical infrastructure is going to be affected, what our plans might need to be as far as building, as far as removing some areas from development, not that there's a lot left, or maybe acquiring certain parcels of land that we know are just going to be flooded in 20 years. So I'm really pleased that, again, we really led with this at the beaches. We had recently hired for a position in our planning department, and part of that is a part-time resiliency officer. That, again, Atlantic Beach is leaning in on this, and the other beach communities are following our lead. We had a sea level rise forum last year at Fletcher High. I belong to several organizations that are looking at sea level rise. And our model for sea level rise is a little bit different because we combine nuisance flooding with tidal flooding to really get a more accurate picture than you might see from the flood maps. So yeah, we're working on that really hard. And we have a great engineer in Steve Swan, probably one of the best hires we've made in the city, a coastal engineer who lives in Atlantic Beach, and he's worth his weight in gold.
Lisa?
I believe Bruce is next, but I can certainly go if you'd like.
Sorry, yes, you're right. Bruce is, I'm sorry. Starting questions.
Thanks. Thanks. I don't have a lot to add, but what I would say is, as I mentioned in my opening statement, that I think this is probably one of the most critical issues that we face. I have been unfortunate enough to see the result of this close up. As a Navy's coordinator for Hurricane Katrina and Wilma, I can tell you that Gulfport, Mississippi and New Orleans will never be the same. And I think part of that is a result of where they put themselves. So I think what I could bring to the commission is kind of an overview of seeing what the results of not doing the preventive maintenance that we require. So again, this is pretty much, could be my top 1 or 2, because if anybody cares about anybody living here, as Rick mentioned, years and years from now, this will directly affect them. And I've seen the direct results of that and lived with it for 2 years in one of my previous jobs. So I understand what a salt fire is. I know what marsh flooding is. I understand what levees do. I understand what beach erosion is. And I think I can bring some of that knowledge to help the commission. Thanks.
Now, Lisa.
Thank you. I agree that it is a priority. It really should be our top priority. I attended the Beaches Watch meeting where Steve Swan made the presentation of the flood level study. It is alarming. I think that everyone can look at the city's website and check that out. I think it's very important right now that we cultivate and put in place a long-range vision that addresses these issues as far as drainage goes, and to make sure that the homeowners that are in floodplains, that we have a plan on how to address that. 10 years, 20 years is not as far away as you think. So I think that that's super important. One thing that I know is critical in my mind, and was alarming actually when we had this vote last year, the Better Jacksonville money, we as the beaches receive a portion of the Better Jacksonville money right now. And in 2030, when that tax continues but shifts to pay for the pension program downtown, that will leave a hole in our budget. And that money right now is not an insignificant amount, but it does go to pay for infrastructure, utilities. And I think that that's something that we really need to be thinking of now, even though it doesn't go away till 2030, but I'm a firm believer in developing a solid plan. And I would rely heavily on the expertise of Steve Swan. I think he was, like Ellen said, a great hire and a super smart man. So I would rely on his expertise.
I've got a question directed, I think, primarily to the 2 mayoral candidates. There is this measure on our ballot to change the term of office for the mayor from 2 to 4 years starting in 2022. Would you 2 like to give us your views on that ballot measure? We're still all mulling it.
Who's first? Rick?
You are. We'll keep taking you. Oh no, Rick is first. Rick is first. We're going to stay in speaking order.
This is one of the positions that I know Ellen and I disagree on. I strongly recommend that a no vote on this charter change. Right now, the charter, as it was originally written, as it stands today, every election cycle, every 2 years going forward, a majority of the commission is on the ballot every 2 years. 3 seats, the mayor and 2 commissioners. That means the residents, the voters, can change a majority of the commission every election. I think this was done, call it with malice aforethought. This was intentionally planned that way by the people who wrote our charter. I think it's still the way it should be. We should be able to change directions every 2 years. Thank you.
Ellen?
Okay, yes, Rick and I do disagree, and largely for the same reasons, but I'm just going to say, I stayed out of the discussion part of this when the commission discussed whether to put, in terms of the merits of the referendum, because I did not want the vote to be about me, because it would not, if it passes, it would not take effect until after the next election. So that's important to me. But since I've been asked about how I'm going to vote yes. And I'll tell you why. Even though the power really, I mean, we serve the voters. It is up to the voters. But I think when you elect a mayor, you need to give him or her the opportunities to succeed. A 2-year term is very short. Both Jack's Beach, Neptune Beach, all of the commissioners and councilors serve 4-year terms. So our mayor is always really sort of the junior member of the team. So you get and really, I think Rick said it's 4, but I thought it was 3 of the last 5 mayors have served 1 term. So Atlantic Beach seems to like to change direction on a regular basis. And so it makes it incredibly hard for the mayor to, in fact, like plan his own budget, see his own agenda come to pass. And I think we should give our mayor a chance to succeed. So I do believe that you can have that shift in power with voting on 2 as opposed to 3 every time. I mean, because the makeup of the commission, it changes. So I just feel like that we need to give ourselves a chance to actually be a larger voice in the bigger conversations. Lisa talks about the Better Jacks money. You know, when you keep changing mayors, you're not going to have much incentive to really work on that very difficult problem. Same thing with sea level rise. I think you really have to give your mayor a chance to do the work you elected him to do. So I'm going to be voting yes.
Okay, thank you. That was an interesting disagreement. This is a kind of pitying question for all of you from someone saying, how do you respond and keep up with all the various ways Atlantic Beach citizens are communicating with you, Facebook, email, phone, and how can you possibly actually use what anyone is saying to you to govern? I mean, how do you manage that? And I guess, Rick, I don't suppose you're right in the thick of that at this moment, but
Yeah.
Take it as a hypothetical and we'll work our way down.
Well, I think you have to try to be aware of what they're saying by all means possible. And if that means getting help, if you're actually elected from your staff, then you do that. But I think the people who actually come to the meeting, feel strongly enough about something to come to a meeting, are the ones that need to be listened to most directly. You have to listen to everybody. Some people can't come to a meeting, and you have to look at the individual, but look at everything, take some things with a grain of salt. Virtually all of us running for office have been here a while. Some people, we know who they are. We know what to think about what they say. Other people, you know, they're always speaking with the best interests of the city at heart. So you have to look at who it's from, but don't discount anything until you've done some research too.
Ellen?
Well, I will say that it's a challenge, and we have really done a lot in the city to increase the way we communicate with our residents, and I would love to see more residents come to City Hall and engage with us and use official channels. But more and more, we are seeing people just have conversations on Facebook, and I follow them because I do think it's valuable as a litmus test for what's going on, but it's very difficult to follow some of those conversations. Elected officials can fall into a trap of making a sunshine violation if they comment on something and then another commissioner comes in. That's actually, it's a crime. I mean, it's something we train our elected officials not to do. And so oftentimes a very important issue, you know, the message gets out from somebody who's got one perspective and they're not coming to meetings. And so it's difficult to sort of educate people on really what is going on, because we try really hard to air issues out in public forums and provide that information. And people will say, well, I didn't know about this, or I didn't hear about that. So I have learned a lot in the last 3 years about being sort of in the bright public light. And I have found that you really cannot make everyone happy. And sometimes people can be pretty darn mean. And that's difficult because, as Rick said, we know a lot of these people. Most people, I find, are really wonderful in person, but then they don't act the same way when they're on social media. And then you can never convey the message fully because somebody reads into it something that they might want to see or misunderstand, because we're not perfect communicators, right? So it's very challenging to sort of make sure that the narrative is true to what the city is doing and it's not distorted. Not to mention the fact that we have so many different social media sites these days. It's very difficult to keep track of them. So luckily, the city has a wonderful public information officer in Kevin Hogenkamp. He always hits the right note in communicating with our residents. And he helps me sometimes, points me to things that I need to know about, because I just can't follow all of it all of the time. You could spend all day on social media, and we want people to come to the meetings and email us and call us. I wish they would.
Bruce and Lisa, you're not either of you in the face of this fire hose just yet, but if you have thoughts, we'll take them.
Yeah, I've got a few. Maybe I can take kind of a different perspective. Interesting. It's so easy to be critical these days. I look at Facebook but I kind of had a unique position as a deputy commandant on the Naval Academy. I technically was the dean of students for 4,200 18 to 21-year-olds, and everything that I did was magnified, as you can imagine, to a great extent. And believe me, I got instantaneous feedback on what I ate for lunch. Okay, I'm very serious. So I understand that you can be critical, but I think you have to be open, accessible. I think some of the best things I've heard are from my neighbors. I live on Seminole, and I'm telling you, I get a lot of traffic, and I talk to a lot of people walking their dogs. And if they see my sign, they stop, and usually I talk to them. I think that's some of the best input. And I'll cut it off short, but if you're at Culhane's about 4 o'clock on Fridays, I'm going to be sitting Rick will be probably at the corner table. I'll be at the other end. Thanks.
Lisa? Lisa, you're muted.
No, I'm not. Sorry. Sorry about that. I have a strong background in community engagement, so I'm used to gathering a lot of input and kind of convening groups around issues and movements and such. I'm also in the communications business at an advertising agency. So I feel that I would approach this issue in a very open and modern way. I prefer not to deal with social media, and was comfortably off social media until I started to do this, and everyone said you have to do social media for this. So I would like to pivot from that once this is over and I'm elected. For me, this comes back to the time issue. I have plenty of time to be accessible in the community. I have tremendous support from my employer because we are a social impact firm, to take as much time and leave of absence if I need to participate in this job fully. So I would be completely accessible, physically and personally accessible. I would encourage people to reach out to me directly. I think that it's important to maintain my website. I've already had a ton of communication, people just looking through the different websites of the candidates and reaching out and asking me questions. So that's been gratifying. I've enjoyed walking around to all the different neighborhoods that I've been able to get to so far. I've got a big list of where else I still need to be, and talking to people. And I think that the community has, that I've been able to talk to, of course, at a safe distance and with a mask on, has appreciated that. I would support the efforts that Kevin Hogenkamp, I think he's doing a great job. He's pretty responsive, and people are starting to know that they can reach him. I love that my water bill comes with a pamphlet for the city of Atlantic Beach that says what's happening this month, what's going on, the top issues. So I think that's also important. I think that, you know, accessibility, just physical accessibility, will be the secret for me. And I just intend to take as many opinions and encourage as many opinions as I can possibly gather so that I can make informed decisions for the whole community.
You mentioned the masks, and I have one question from a physician who's in our group asking about her concerns on COVID-19. What's your support or not for a statewide mask mandate? And we'll start again with Rick.
I feel
If
somewhat
you don't
at a
want to be first, we
disadvantage
can
here,
start,
but
I can start flipping coins.
no, I think that with a lot of, unfortunately, more rules on it, that there should be a statewide mandate for certain situations. There are too many opportunities where you get large numbers of people together, and if we're going to allow those kinds of gatherings, then there has to be a mandate to keep this from continuing. Otherwise, we're just gonna have ups and downs, cycle after cycle.
Ellen?
Well, as I guess I'm the only elected official here. I mean, I've been involved in all of the conversations up until now related to, you know, a lot of the restrictions that I see somebody's putting a mask on. That's so yeah, I was in favor of a statewide mask mandate. I was in favor of a mask mandate in our county. I wish that we had acted sooner on it. We've reached a point now where, you know, now it seems that things have shifted to where we're expecting people to exercise personal responsibility. So if you're uncomfortable someplace, don't go there. I wish that we could make that true. I worry a lot about our vulnerable populations, but I have a 96-year-old mother-in-law who's not going to stay inside. So, I mean, she wears a mask. I mean, we're careful. But it's, I mean, the mask is not the solution, but I do think that it would have prevented some of the spread by having a statewide mask mandate. Yes.
Bruce, anything to add?
Yeah, I basically agree with Ellen. I mean, you have to have a uniform policy. You know, we don't. I mean, I can go to JAX, get on a plane, come off a plane. What exactly is the policy for me transferring? So my only point was, if you're going to do something, do it uniformly and go ahead and enforce what you have out there.
Lisa?
I'd have to completely echo what Bruce just said. I mean, I completely agree that I would like to have some solid and consistent leadership on this at all levels that we, you know, enforce. I think that that's the only way that we're gonna, I mean, we should listen to our healthcare professionals. This is what they're telling us is one of the big things that we can do to help to mitigate this awful thing that we're dealing with. And I think that it's important that we have some solid leadership and enforcement on the issue. So I agree.
Okay, I'm not going to keep us all here too long, but we have very interesting questions. So I'm going to ask you two more. This is a broad question about what are your thoughts on our city's emergency management and preparedness, and do we need any important policy changes?
Me first again?
You first.
Okay. I will confess to not having read the emergency policies that are in place right now. I was very, very familiar with them when I was the Public Works Director. I think our our policies have been updated. I know that Vic Galillo has been in charge of that for years and has always done an outstanding job of making sure the city is fully protected to the best of what humankind can do. So I think our policies are good. I think they need to be looked at every year, every time something new comes around. This year, very active hurricane season. We've been lucky, but they're getting stronger. So we need to be looking at our policies every year about what we need to do. Thank you.
Alan?
Oh, so it's my turn. So in the last 3 years, I both was an observer to the hurricane response protocol, and then I've been through it twice myself. I'm very impressed with the Emergency Operations Center downtown. I'm very satisfied that we have really great public servants who are poised to respond in those settings. There are some gaps that I've seen. One came to mind with the RNC, where we thought we would have potentially venues used at the beach, and there was apparently no way for us to get additional resources or have them be paid for. That's a problem. When we closed the beaches, we were able to handle that activity, but if we'd had a problem, it would have been nice to know that JSO could provide us with additional resources, and I'm not sure that's the case. Someone mentioned enforcement with masks. I mean, there really was no mechanism to enforce violations on occupancy or masks, and so I'm not sure that those things are housed in our emergency management plan, but it's definitely something that we need to continue to tweak because we saw some shortfalls there. I am happy to talk to anybody who wants to about the decision to close the beaches and how the mayor of Jacksonville serves as the head county executive for the county when there is an emergency. So people have asked me countless times, well, why didn't you keep them open in Atlantic Beach? And I'll say that we wanted to have a consistent message. And so the 3 beach mayors worked with Mayor Curry on that. And if there had been a singular issue in Atlantic Beach, I could have probably stepped away from the team on that. But when it came to having a unified county response, that is by ordinance in Jacksonville, and it was part of the consolidation agreement. So when you say, well, we're independent, well, let me ask you, if we're so independent, why do we vote for the mayor of Jacksonville? It's because he is the head county executive. There seems to be a lot of confusion about that just historically. So, and I've had to answer a lot of questions about why I have closed the beach. And it may not have been the perfect decision. We probably wouldn't do it again. But again, we did not have the data. All we had was information on throngs of people coming to the beaches and fear of exposure. So we worked very closely on that. And I'm gonna say that I really felt that politics was not the lens that we were operating under. We were operating under a lens of public safety. I was very impressed with all of the selfless public servants that are doing the emergency preparedness planning.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yes, I think I've got kind of a unique a viewpoint on this. I kind of mentioned in my opening statement, I actually ran the Emergency Operations Center for the Navy for the Southeast. It's based right here at NAS JAX. From that facility, one thing that I learned the hard way was coordinating with other agencies. By that I mean, and Ellen just mentioned, I think one thing that I would focus on is the communication between the city of Atlantic Beach, and other agencies that can bring all kinds of resources, if you know where to go, to your problem. There's issues that you normally wouldn't think about as I sit down, here on Shell Street tonight, that concern me. I'm a badged FEMA contractor. I do contracting with FEMA. I actually worked in DC at the FEMA office on C Street. I understand kind of the resources that they can bring to it. I'll mention one right now that you would not normally think of. I mean, primarily our conversation has been hurricanes and storms and water, but unfortunately our friends to the north here at Kings Bay Naval Base, you'd be very surprised at some of the issues that facility involves us here on the northeast coast of Florida or Mayport. Like I said, I have kind of a unique ability to know some of the vulnerabilities that those things bring to where we live. So I would say primarily my concern would be on day one, maybe bring some of my expertise and talk to them about how to coordinate with other federal, state, local agencies that can bring resources to us here in Atlantic Beach. Thanks.
Thanks. Lisa?
So I don't pretend to know all things. Having lived here since '93, we've had to evacuate a couple times. I always felt that went smoothly. I was always felt well informed by our city with how they reach out to citizens during an emergency. I was empathetic with our city leadership during COVID and everybody doing something that they never thought they'd have to do and doing it for the first time. And it was certainly uncharted territory. I would make sure that I was versed in the current emergency preparedness plan. And I feel that I could certainly have some time with Shane and our new chief of police to fully understand that, our city manager and our chief of police to fully understand that, to make sure that I'm well versed and to make sure that the communication between the citizens of Atlantic Beach is smooth, whatever I could do to facilitate and help with that. And also to make sure that I maintain strong communication as a unit of the Atlantic Beach Commission as a whole with the city of Jacksonville. I feel that I have a good relationship with our beaches representative on Jacksonville City Council, even though he and I don't agree on a lot of things, but I feel I have a good talking, personal relationship with him now. And so I would just work hard to learn all I needed to know to make sure I was making part of a team that made the right decision for our community.
Okay. Last question that I think we have time for before we've worn you all out. And just for the sake of difference, we're going to go backwards this time. So Lisa, you're going to be first up. And give Rick a break. This question is broad and do what you like with it, but what do you think are the most important priorities for the improvements on Mayport Road?
What do I think are the most important priorities for the improvement on Mayport Road? I think the top priority has to be bringing it down from 6 lanes to 4 lanes. And I understand that that's in the works right now with the Department of Transportation. I think that I can see why it was like that. I think it's the only part of all of it that is of all of A1A that it is that many lanes. And now that the Wonderwood is open, we can certainly cut that back. So I'm glad to hear that that's in the works. I'd like to see it more bike and pedestrian friendly, especially as we look at our parks plan, because linking sunrise to sunset, we have a string of fantastic parks that bridge both sides of Mayport Road. And I think that it would be important for all these wonderful families that live in our community that bike and hike to have an easy path from the parks at the beach side to the parks on the marsh side. So going down to 4 lanes, making it more bike and pedestrian friendly, I think is the top priority for Mayport Road.
Cool. Bruce?
Yeah, again, I understand the Mayport Road, and I think part of the reason that of the 3 lanes were the base, and obviously that population fluctuates according to what the base population. So I would, I understand that issue. I think the biggest thing I would say is, and I know this is in work, but empower the businesses along Mayport to thrive. And by that I mean, let's go ahead and publicize the great things that we just talked about along the corridor, not only economic, but the whole environment there that we can make thrive. I know you drive down there and you see things that are closed and boarded up, and you think, wow, this economy is in a state of flux right now. I think we're all looking at a cataclysmic change in the way we do business. Hey, why can't we have some, in my world, defense industry? Why can't we have contractors in some of those buildings? And let's go ahead and publicize the fact that we have room to grow, that we have space, that we have a great environment, that we have a city that welcomes economic development, and make that a fertile bed. And I think as that grows, I think that you can see real change. And I know it's not going to happen overnight, but I think that if the right policies are out there, I think it can make a difference. Thanks.
Ellen?
My brain is exploding. I have so many thoughts in my head, and I feel like I haven't covered so many of them. So one of the first things I did when I became mayor is I made it a priority to get the speed limit reduced in Mayport Road. And I didn't succeed in getting it done anywhere outside of Atlantic Beach. And I didn't get a big reduction, but I did get a reduction from 45 to 40 miles an hour. And I also advocated strongly for a school zone up at the Mayport Middle School, because I was concerned about children walking and riding their bikes along the Mayport corridor. I've ridden my bike a lot, and that's a place I've ridden a lot, and it's dangerous. And we've been talking about it for years. So I was really proud of that accomplishment. It sort of gets lost in everything else over the last couple of years, but we have been working with the Florida Department of Transportation and the Transportation Planning Organization on a project to create a multi-use path and a sidewalk on either side of Mayport Road, combined with, a road diet or a lane reduction or whatever you want to call it. I'm a little hesitant to talk too much about it because I think we need to put the data out about how that actually makes the street function more efficiently. And one of the things Kevin does for us is he is creating project pages for the different initiatives and projects that we have in the city, so people can go to that and understand why we're doing it. I think that could be transformational in Atlantic Beach. We also have pushed to get, I think it's $2 million in safety improvements along the Mayport corridor. People complain about crossing with their bikes and doing other things. There's going to be a reconfiguration of the area under the underpass in conjunction with the lane reduction. So we have a facade improvement and a public art program. We are encouraging businesses to come, and we'll match grants. You've probably seen there's a mural project going up right now. It's, I think, in the 600 block of Mayport Road. That building was not impressive a year ago. It's been fixed up, a nice fence, a nice facade, and now they're putting a mural up. So we've got murals going up that we're working with businesses on that. We're working with trying to create this cultural corridor along a not very attractive part of Mayport Road. We've worked with the arts market to try to get, I mean, that was quite an undertaking, getting that building redeveloped and used, and it's just marvelous. And so we're working with other businesses, other people to try to create things that are going to make it more inviting. We've got a distillery and a coffee shop that I think are going to come into the area where the cultural corridor is. So a lot is happening, and I give a lot of credit to Shane, and I really want to be a part of that because we are such a team on this, and it's very exciting because people just didn't think we could make anything happen along Mayport Road. So that's just a little bit of my story.
Thank you. Rick? Oh, you're muted.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Okay, what the city has done on Mayport Road since I first became involved in the city in 2004 is amazing. It no longer looks like a dried up industrial corridor. There are a lot of really bright spots on it now. The road diet, the reduction in our section from Atlantic Boulevard up to Dutton Island Road. It's a concept right now. They've got some pretty pictures. It's not funded, but I know whoever's sitting in the chair down in City Hall will be pushing that one big time. That will make a significant reduction. Increasing pedestrian and more drastically, I think, bicycle safety on the Mayport corridor is essential. It would be linking it to the East Coast Greenway, having a safe path through Atlantic Beach on the East Coast Greenway would be marvelous. Being able to get from Atlantic Beach to Hanna Park safely would be a really nice get. The reduction in used car lots, would like to see that continue. A lot of more retail oriented. Bruce mentioned contractors, office buildings or retail, things that the buildings, we have some interesting, or we used to have some interesting land development regulation along there that would make new development along there much more attractive than the buildings that exist there now, and pushing that forward. The cultural corridor, I think, is an awesome deal. One thing I do disagree with that the city is doing now is the food truck roundup. I understand it's popular, but we've got a lot of brick and mortar restaurants in this city that could use the business. And so I don't think we should be inviting food trucks from out of Atlantic Beach in here to set up shop twice a week. But I'll just leave that one there. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all for wanting these jobs and for being willing to spend this time with us. This has been a really, really helpful gathering for all of us. Thank you for coming. Thank you for everybody who attended. And we have recorded this, so if people know of people who wanted to come but couldn't make it or hear about it and are interested, this will be posted on our website for people's future reference, along with links to all the candidates' websites. Besides that, it's obviously less than 60 days to the election, so Beaches activist movement is very busy these days, still trying to help people register for vote by mail, working on getting out the vote, working on a wide range of things. If you're interested in any of that, go to beachesactivist.com and look at our Get Involved page. There are all kinds of links to help hook you up with ways to be helpful. And save the date of Thursday, October 8th, which will be our next meeting, also by Zoom. We've got 3 very impressive attorneys who've been involved in some of the city's more interesting conflicts over the last few years. They were in the thick of the fight to get the half-cent sales tax on the ballot before. They've been in the thick of the JEA case, and they have some inside knowledge of the ongoing battles to get Measure 4 restoring voting rights to ex-felons finally through the courts. So they're going to come talk to us about all of that, and hope you can join us. But in the meantime, thanks to everyone here. Thanks to everybody who cares about Atlantic Beach, and appreciate having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great program.
Thank you.
Good job.